Hey folks, this is Bailey from Dank Wargaming.
Hey, this is Heath with Team Table Hawaii.
And hey, this is Toby from Gaming.
And welcome to The Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast, where our aim is to provide Dark Angels players with the tactical and hobby skills that they need in order to compete and enjoy in this wonderful hobby of ours. As he mentioned, joining us today is Toby Bennett from Gaming, fresh off his experience at the Glasshammer GT. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the podcast this week.
Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I think as we said in our pre-show, man, we've been following your exploits for some time in the Leviathan season, doing really, really well, performing with the Firestorm version of Dark Angels. I think you commented on one of our shows a few weeks and months ago that you'd like to come on and talk about it. So, we actually reached out through Alan Percival, managed to hook that up. So here we go. Once again, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to set this up. Again, we've got a multinational 12 time zone, around the world discussion here. But yeah.
No, fantastic. Really looking forward to it. I think, it was always entertaining seeing people's reactions to how has Firestorm made it to the Meta Monday article, because I don't think anyone really ever expected it, especially from Dark Angels, when it's like there is clearly a better option right there with Triple Redemptor, all that kind of thing. But yeah, it was a good laugh. It's a shame that not a shame because it's actually a really good mission pack, but now we've got Prior Nexus, so everything has completely changed. But so it's slightly out of date information, but I'm sure we can touch on that.
Well, I mean, I think the idea being that it's a different way to approach the game because Ironstorm was obviously all about just the mathematical oppression of DACA, and that was personally what attracted me to Firestorm. Was like, man, everything's +1 strength, everything's got assault, everything I can jump out and shoot, and +1 to wound and all this. But looking at your lists, that's not the way you play it. And talking to Alan, he says that it's all about the action monkeys and playing the mission. So, just because Ironstorm is really good doesn't mean there's not a way to do it. So anyway, what attracted you to Firestorm in the previous edition?
Season? I mean, so I think I've always had a love of salamanders. So before I played Dark Angels, I played salamanders in 9th. Loved playing eradicators with their double shoot and the +1 to wound. That was always really, really tasty. But then I switched over to Dark Angels because I was attracted by Deathwing. And then unfortunately Deathwing were kind of a bit they were great. Who doesn't love 40 Terminators only being wounded on 4s running at it's
exactly.
Great. But
now I see why you're Alan's friend. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately then all of those units became not so good at the start of 10th. So Alan does regularly tease me that previously I played Dark Iron Salamanders as my actual army. So that was partly why I first immediately went to Firestorm. And when we just had Index Space Marines, my favourite part of the combat doctrines was the Devastator Doctrine, where everything got assault, they could go forward, they could do some really nice little abilities. And that's kind of where I first got the idea from. I was like, right, if I give assault to literally everything, how does an opponent calculate where my units are going to be, what angles they can get, and what threat range I'm going to have? So it was a lot of that trying to make your opponents second guess themselves and have to play a slightly different game, not be able to sort of play that expected game plan because suddenly a Redemptor might just go 14 inches rather than 8, which is obviously absolutely terrifying, or a Land Raider Redeemer can suddenly go 18 inches, which is always quite entertaining.
And still shoot.
And still shoot, yeah. And when it does that, it doesn't end overly well for your opponents a lot of the time. Yeah. And then, as mentioned, it was the ability to be able to do actions after assaulting. It gave, and also to throw grenades after assaulting. You'd get close, you'd use your grenades, you'd use maybe the +1 to wound stratagem, and it meant that those chaff units could kind of punch up above their weight. So that was always the way that you kind of pull it off. You'd have, your classic, your Redemptors, your gladiators, usually the Daka variant, because who doesn't love sustain 2 on 12 shots, and dev wounds, absolutely hilarious. So you had those core units that kind of everyone was playing, but then you just had that maneuverability. You sacrificed some of the killing power to focus on mission play. And your opponent can't win a game if you've scored 100. They can only draw it, right? So that was always my logic. And I mean, a lot of the time it just sort of slightly unsettled people. So that was why Firestorm, in probably quite a long rambling way.
Well, I mean, there's definitely, you say, one of the things we've discussed on the show before is kind of that information advantage, right? When people say, "Oh, it's a Dark Angels player," wait, hold on, it's not Ironstorm. They don't have that match pre-planned. They don't know what the capabilities are, so they're operating at a disadvantage to you. Whereas when you're playing the meta army, everyone's got a pre-planned response for what you're already doing. So, could you just briefly run down kind of what your list was for Leviathan, just to we have a base point to start from, if you recall what the key points were.
I could probably just about remember. I think my Oxford list, and I think it was very similar to my ITT list, where I went 4-1 in both of them. So it was double Redemptor, Azrael, Phobos Librarian, and then you kind of jump between either the Lone Op Lieutenant or another scoring unit. Then triple Scouts, because Infiltrate is brilliant. Some jump pack intercessors, a couple of Gladiator Reapers, a Storm Speeder, the one that gets the Thunderstrike to get +1 to wound into vehicles and monsters. And I think, and a Predator, just because Predators are really good. Just for 130 points, they're a really nice little chassis. And I think that was the ITT. I actually brought the pre-buff Inner Circle Companions, because it was like, there's something here with them, with Azrael, giving them a 4-up in Vun, and hitting like an absolute truck with suddenly -1 to hit, because I was missing the -1 to wound that we lost with Company Heroes. So yeah, that was the list.
Okay. Well, I'm curious. So there's a lot of stuff here that we don't see very often. For example, we said like triple Scouts. You see one, maybe two. I don't think we see triple a whole lot. So is this what you're saying? You're saying, hey, I can forward deploys these and then scout them forward with the intent of throwing a grenade and then getting strength 5, like shotgun and bolter fire, or they're just strictly hold them the back and jump them around, or a little mix of both?
To be honest, their job is to screen. Their job is to buy my gunline time to get within 12 inches, do that devastating blow, and then I've won the game at that point. A lot of the time they would end up pinning my opponent in the deployment zone. If I went first, they run forward, get something in combat. They punch above their weight for 65 points. Between grenades, the rocket, and they're no slouches in combat. They would usually do more damage than what their points were. But to be honest, just keeping your opponent. I remember there was a game at the ITT where I was against Votan, and I just went, right, okay, I'm going to put scouts here, here, and here. You're not leaving your deployment zone for 2 turns. And he didn't. And because he basically played the game for 3 turns and I played it for 5, I won, I think, 14-6 or something like that. But if he'd had unlimited board access for 5 turns, I almost certainly would have lost that game. So that's why it's triple Scouts. And I think Infiltrate has got even more important. I mean, I've actually dropped down to 2 now. But I would still say Scouts. That was why triple Scouts.
Okay, so one of the lists I've had a lot of trouble with is the triple Thunderwolf list. Just I can't stop them from flooding the middle of the board. I can't get up there, to keep them from being on the center objectives, and they're just so dead killy that. And this is one of the things I considered was, okay, I just need stuff to infiltrate, push forward, and bottle them up. So Has that been successful with against that kind of archetype?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the slight differences between the UK and the US meta. We don't have that as much in our meta because the terrain setups at UKTC is really unfriendly to those kinds of lists. They bottleneck really easily. So
Oh,
I
that
think
sounds lovely.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant
yeah,
for us.
that sounds great.
It's even better now. The Lion can breach. Very happy about that.
Yes,
But what I'll use as an example would be World Eaters then. And yeah, that's where it really comes into its own because you go, right, okay, here are my scouts. I've still got enough scoring units not to have to worry about it. But then you're going to hit my scouts. Then you're going to hit my double redemptors and my reapers. And by then, there's not going to be many of you left. Sure, Angron might come back if you've got Angron, but I can usually Thunderstrike that and deal a heck of a lot of damage to it with I forgot Inceptors. Inceptors are the other thing that I always used to pack because 3-inch deep strike is very, very good.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that critical mass of 3 damage alongside just chaff units and being in areas of the board that your opponent can't expect. The number of times a rapid ingress just to nick an objective off an opponent and then score it in my turn was with the Inceptors was just really good, really, really handy. But yeah, so that's where you really need that screening because Marines just can't. Well, they couldn't tussle in combat. We didn't have anything that was overly good at like taking that charge and then hitting back. We do now, definitely. But there wasn't. I was always very firmly in the. We'll hold them back for a turn. We'll shoot them with a critical mass of firepower, and by then hopefully there's not enough of them to then hit me again with that power. So yeah, I mean you see it with Sisters now. You see it you saw it with Kroot. And yes, the Scout Jail I guess can be the way forward.
Scout Jail. That's a new term. We're going to accept that into the lexicon. I like it. So, all right. Okay. So the killing here is the Redemptors and the Gladiators. Is what it sounds like. And the Thunderstrike selectively buffing whatever needs to get buffed. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it usually came down to if there was infantry targets that I needed handled, then the gladiators would just come into their own. The amount of shots that they're spitting out is just disgusting. And even if they weren't shooting into infantry, just dev wounds, eventually you roll 6s, especially with twin links. Yeah. So they were always very good. But I think the Redemptors, they were killy. They're not as reliably killy because D6 plus 1 is not reliable when you're needing to kill, say, 3 wound elite infantry. I guess it's plus 2 most of the time because of blast, but they were very much like that threat of it's going to be here. It's probably going to kill at least something, and then you're not going to be able to kill it on the crackback because of that between the -1 damage, 2-up save, usually with cover and armor of contempt. So again, it goes back to that kind of thing. It's not an overly killy list. It is very much that I'm going to be where you don't want me to be, and that's going to stop your fun.
Okay, so just push for board presence, like use the scouts and then just use the speed that you can advance and shoot everything to try and get to the mid board and survive there long enough to get ahead on primary.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the nastiest thing I ever did in terms of that was round 1 of the ITT, and so it's WTC scoring, so you do have to really go through your opponent's throat. And he was playing Sisters and had 2 Castigators and 10 of the Arcos in strategic reserve. So I just went, right, okay, I'm going to go all around the board, and you're not going to be able to bring them from strategic reserve. There is no 9-inch bubble that you can put that in. And it's like, well, I don't have to kill the best part of your army because I've done that now. Funnily enough, a Sisters player Vic VJ had done it to me at Oxford already, so I'd learned from that, and I think that
That's
game ended
funny.
about 100 to 26, which is obviously a 20-0.
Ooh, 20-0. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to in teams, don't you? Because your mate might end up getting 28 himself, so you can't. Usually, I'm very much on that. Like, well, this is going to be chill. We're playing toy soldiers. We're going to have a laugh. But in teams, it does have to be that slight elevation to go like, no, sorry, I'm going to try and go for your throat here. It's such a feels bad though, because you're like, I'm so sorry you don't get to play with your toys, but I have to do this.
Yeah.
It's like
You're
when
playing
someone It's like what do you do?
That 5D chess. Ugh. Yeah. Like, look, man, I'm sorry. You made a bad decision, and I have to punish you for it. So
yeah, I don't even think it was a bad decision. It was on Dawn of War. So like, usually, when can you not strat reserve something on Dawn of War? And it's because
that's fair. Ooh.
Some nasty person has 3-inch deep strike and just absolutely pegs it across the board with everything.
Yeah.
One
thing I noticed here is you say you have a Phobos librarian, but you don't have any other Phobos stuff.
It's because I forgot to say I had infiltrators. That's
okay. There you go.
That's me. Yeah, sorry.
I kind of put you on the spot coming up with this off the top of your head. So, all right. Got it. Phobos
my brain is fully on Gladius lists now, because I'm sure, as we'll come on to, Firestorm is unfortunately a little bit dead. But yes, infiltrators to give me a 12-inch deep strike deny, lone op so that guard tank spam couldn't just indirect them and then drop in their what's it called, the when the reinforcements guys, the Kasakim. So they can't.
The stormtroopers. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And like the fact that your opponent can't deep strike and shoot or declare a charge against the unit usually completely screening your backfield. You look at something like Search and Destroy, they cannot drop in and do things like deploy teleport Homer or behind enemy lines, because you can just string yourself out enough.
Nope.
And then usually you needed a bit of one unit on each flank as well there on your deployment zone. That's not hard to do in that kind of infantry heavy list.
Yeah, I've had enough people make 9-inch charges out of deep strike on me that I just keep saying I can get away without the infiltrators, and then in the game I wish I had the infiltrators. But okay, well, so that's just a good recap of how we got here. So you went to Glasshammer a couple last week, and that was a Firestorm list. First game with Pariah Nexus, first turn with Pariah Nexus. And how'd it go? What's your thoughts?
Okay, so I think you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, because on day one I walked in at 9 a.m. and my friends went, right, here's 2 ciders. You have 2 drinks on you at all times. It was my birthday, so you have 2 drinks on you at all times.
Okay,
and you got to drink them quickly. So I was quite drunk by the start of round 2, which was on stream, and you can go and watch it. Glasshammer UK YouTube channel. No. Wearing a sash and a little birthday princess hat. Nice. It was good.
It's a good thing that we are not taking this too seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I was like, well, screw it. I've taken Firestorm. I'm pretty sure it's dead. But let's just let's look under the hood and double check that it's completely screwed. So I was like, well, what does this list look like? Okay, well, we'll go triple Redemptor, because that seems good. And then I decided that I wanted to try out the Judicar and the 6 Inner Circle Companions. So fights first, in the Impulsor, I mean, if you've used them now, which I imagine most Dark Angels players have, they hit like an absolute freight train, and they just go through things like there's no tomorrow, especially with the +1 to wound strat. And I gave them the enhancement to ignore modifiers. So if I came up against Catan, Angron, Champion of Humanity on the Judicar was really nice. But unfortunately, I think, so Ben Jones, who is a Team England player and is probably best known for being on Vanguard Tactics, he was also playing Dark Angels, and I was chatting to him before, and he said, I'm bringing the 2 librarians, and as soon as I saw that in his list, I was like, yeah, that was probably the better call to give them the 4-up invulnerable save. So no spoilers for what my list is this week, but it might have 2 librarians in it. But so round one, I'd already necked 2 beers by the start of round one. But I was against Tyranids, new Tyranids, so like triple Biovore, no, not triple Biovore, triple Exocrine, sorry, double Maliceptor, and then they're kind of standard tricks, the last cannon, brain bugs, all that kind of thing. On Dawn of War, so loads of great firing lanes, everything like that, and I'm like, okay, we're on supply drop. Which one is going to be the mission? And of course, because why wouldn't it be? It was the dead center with the massive X of shooting lanes. So it was very, very not good for me. But I went first, and I wandered up. Just sort of got myself in positions where, because it's Dawn of War, you can't hide everything on Dawn of War. So took out a couple of bugs on both the flanks. I used my scouts just to kind of block him in his deployment zone. So tagged a unit of gargoyles, tagged a unit of gaunts because we were playing WTC rules. So I could charge against the wall, and because he couldn't deploy over an inch away from it, to elongate my charge just that little bit extra, I was able to get an engagement range through the wall, which I actually quite like that rule. I know that that's not the Games Workshop, and that's not the UKTC rule, but WTC like it, and because Manny Chima was organising the tournament, we were playing on the sort of the WTC rules instead, because that's his preferred way of doing it. And then when he got his fire back, into my Redemptors and everything like that, I'd managed to position so that the brain bugs just wouldn't have a shot anywhere, and then the Exocrines had to go into Redemptors, and it turns out if you just roll 3-up and 4-up saves, you guys don't die. Don't know if anyone's found that out yet, but
it's good work if you can get it. It's a good strategy if you can get it. Yeah.
There's so much cover on Glasshammer that you're just like, cool. Because they've got forests on their competitive setup, as well, so which give benefit of cover if you're behind them or fully in them. And on those maps, you're basically always in cover. The ruins are huge, so that's why I'd gone for triple Redemptor as well, just to kind of abuse that 2-up save. And then on my next turn, I was able just to kind of go, okay, most of my army's still here, most of your army's still here, but I am in your face. So I hit him really, really hard, and was able to clear out one flank, and then sort of move across the board, keep denying him on primary, and then because it's supply drop, it gets very lopsided very quickly, and that one ended, I think it was like 84-44, so I won that 20-0, and I went, great, okay.
Just to again, what's the point spread you need to get the 20-0? We don't use the WTC scoring over here in the States very much.
It's 50, so I got it bang on. Oh no, wait, sorry, no, it's 40. So I'd got it bang on to be able to do it. I think I'm gonna have to double check my score now, but it was. I remember walking up because I was slightly drunk at that point already, and I put the score in wrong, so I had to go up to Manny and be like, "Hey, Manny, I'm drunk and just got my score wrong," which was quite embarrassing. It was 81-31, so it was the full 50 points to be able to 20-0 someone. And the slight difference we were doing to standard WTC scoring is that usually in WTC, if it's a 0 point to 4 point 5 point difference, that's a 10-10 draw. But in this version, it had to be a bang on equal number of points to get that draw, which is a great change. At the ITT, it was standard WTC scoring, and the number of draws that happen was a bit like feels bad, especially in those tight games where you'd narrowly beat someone.
No, I could see that. I would prefer that if the rules tell me I win the game, that the tournament rules didn't say, well, actually, hold up there, champ.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's that American football mentality, Heath. We like to win. We don't like draws. We like winning. And we like we don't like draws.
Yeah. I know.
Exactly, and we love our soccer over here, and apparently we just sort of let them always draw and then win on penalties. For anyone watching the Euros last night, I certainly was. So it was
That's the more technical way to do it.
Yeah, it's just you've just got to give the people what they want, which is more incredibly mediocre football, and then win on penalties, and the penalties are actually good. So all right, that's enough sports conversation for a Warhammer podcast, right?
nothing's exciting like a penalty shootout, right?
Yeah.
That's the only time when you're actually on the edge, like, oh, here we go.
England on penalties,
you can't feel too bad.
Famously terrible as well. Yeah, well, we won for I think it was like the fifth five. I think we're 5 out of 5 versus 5 penalty shootout wins versus 9 penalty shootout losses, and most of those wins have only come recently. So we're finally getting there. But people do not want to hear me talking about penalty shootouts. I guarantee.
Moving on. I will say this to make you feel better though, Toby, that Heath is a massive Minnesota Vikings fan, and he went to England to go to Warhammer World and do all that, but mostly to watch the Vikings play, and he made a very specific point of taking lots of pictures at Tottenham Hotspur ground because he knows I'm an Arsenal fan, and he knew it would piss me off. So don't worry, sports do play.
So when I said, and we were here, and I showed him the pictures, and he basically went, "No." Like, hey man, I didn't realize I was walking into one of the circles of hell. But
we went the other way, where we edited Jake Harding from Vanguard Tactics head onto an Arsenal player because he's a massive Spurs fan, and there was one thing he told us that we couldn't do, and we immediately then did it, of course, which was make out that he's the biggest Arsenal fan in the world. So Jake Harding and Franco McDonald, the best Demons player in the world currently, massive Arsenal fans.
Nice.
Up the Gunners, absolutely love it. No, they're massive Tottenham fans, so I hope they see this just to annoy them that little bit. They're great guys, but I also love annoying them.
I do appreciate how guys that are good friends with each other will just go to just insane lengths to troll each other. It's pretty funny. So I can tell you some stories offline about stuff I did on one of my ships in the Navy. That was pretty next level. But anyway, okay,
can't talk about it online though.
Moving on. Yeah.
Okay, so
right,
round 2 was against Grey Knights, and it's against. So I'd not met the guy before, but he was a good friend of our southern team. So Black Crows are all over the UK. And he's sort of well known down south. Guy called Gareth, very well known for his Grey Knights. Very, very good player. I think he'd just done quite well at the Bristol UKTC Grand Tournament. So I knew I was in for it, and I was walking up. We're playing Purge the Foe, which historically has been Grey Knights' kind of stomping ground. They love playing on Purge, and I was like, I'm half cut already. I've had 4 drinks and my opponent's just pressed another 2 into my hand. Like, this is not going to end well. And we're on stream. And the first thing that David from Glasshammer does is he says, and I'm not going to repeat the word, but he's like, guys, you are allowed to swear. You can say this word, one that started with C. And we were like, brilliant, great, let's go. Because we were already hammered. No. So if you do watch that stream, I say that several times. And this is only at 1 p.m, so it was only going downhill at this point. And you can see that it affected me because I went second and kicked off by going, cool, we're going to wander off into the center of the board a little bit. And a second later, I had a unit of Purifiers and Castellan Crow right up my backside, going, hi, we're here to ruin your day, and picking up Azrael off the table, which was very unfortunate.
Oh no.
Yeah, so there were a number of times, where I walked over to some of the other guys and just went, look, it's a close game. I think I've lost, but it's going to be good content. So that's all good. And then we get up to, we just kind of were exchanging as we go. The dice rolling, I don't want to say too much so people can go and kind of watch it and enjoy it. The dice rolling was spectacularly poor for both of us, to the point where we went up to the Glasshammer guys and it was like, did you curse these dice before we came on and played? It was really bad. But then it got to round 5 and I was like, these scores are pretty close and I'm scoring second. So what do I need to do to win? And I'm like, okay, we'll start by shooting shooting the I draw assassinate and I draw I can't remember what the other mission was, but it was one that I could score, and I just about get assassinate because my Redemptor just absolutely full sent into one of the Grey Knight named characters that Gareth had on his own, who was like, the intent was for him to be able to go in and do behind enemy lines and establish locus in fixed. But he couldn't really do that against me because I should have had quite good screening. And then, so I managed to do that. And my speeder in combat has a Grey Knight baby carrier on, I think it was 4 wounds directly in front of it. I'd overwatched it to try and get rid of it. Got the 6 with the las cannon, the las talon.
Nice.
And then rolled a 1, so it had gone from 6 to 4, and I was just like, oh.
Dang it.
No.
Yeah, so it's sitting there on 4 wounds, and so las talon goes into it, saves them both. Missiles go into it, saves them both, and I'm like, okay, I don't. This is going to come down to, can he kill the Redemptor in combat? Oh well, we'll fire the Icarus, see what happens. So I fire the Icarus, get 2 wounds with it, and I go, hey Gareth, just don't roll double 1. Rolls double 1.
No.
It was
Let's go. There you go.
Yeah. It was just like, ooh, okay, it's on.
Just
yeah. So suddenly
just
we're
manifest.
on for Kilmore.
Just bring it to life. There you go.
Yeah.
Adepticon,
so
I
we're on for
taught
Kilmore
Heath
at that
my
point.
one stance. I have a dance. We can teach you afterwards.
What was that?
Ones, and then we have a lucky dice dance too.
A lucky dice dance. Okay. At this point, I think I'd already run up behind Gareth, given him a hug from behind and gone, hey Gareth, look, it's Brokeback Mountain. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Bearing in mind, I'd met this guy at 9 a.m. this morning. So I was really hammered at this point. But yeah, he rolls the double 1s. I managed to kill the librarian. I pick up enough units to get Kilmore, and that game ended 90 to 86. So it was a very, very tight game, and I very narrowly won it 11-9. Yeah, it was an entertaining one. Quite poorly played by me, but I can kind of forgive myself because I was quite hammered. And yeah, it was on stream, so even better. And Gareth was an absolute gent. Real good opponent, really lovely bloke. So round 3, I was like, I'm on for 3-0, and I've had 10 beers at this point. What could possibly go wrong? So I was up against Hypercrypt Necrons with a Tesseract Vault. Turns out
Tesseract Vault.
Oh yeah. Turns out they're actually quite good when they can 3-inch deep strike. So yeah, it was that.
I can't see any other way to play those things because they're just too damn big.
Yeah, you can't. You literally can't. They're
like
huge. It's even with the 3-inch deep strike. It's like, can I actually get this anywhere? And also, you just can't. Yeah, you just can't hide it either. So it was also triple Doomsday Arc with the new pivot rules, which is unpleasant. Again, really nice guy. Patrick from 40k Gaming. So another guy that I didn't know him, but another sort of well-known face in sort of the UK Warhammer scene. So we're going at it hammer and tongs. I get turn 1 on linchpin, which is really bad, and I'm like, there's not much I can do. And I think that was the one map that Glasshammer got wrong as well, because No Man's Land was literally, like, the way that we were describing it was a World War One trench line. Like, you just had to run at your opponent. There was no cover, nothing to obscure. It was all the ruins are in your deployment zone, and that was it. So it was to come up against shooty Necrons was really rough. But. Yeah. I got the Tezzeret Vault down to 3 wounds on turn 1, but then unfortunately it went up in the sky, so it was going to get that turn where it would get to come back in and cause me trouble.
And it heals while it's off the board. Yeah.
Yeah. So it only went to 4 wounds, but it gave it that turn where it can then do 1 Catan power rather than 2. So that was a bit of a pain in the backside, but it was actually the first time I got secret missioned, and we were just kind of exchanging. I was denying him points, and I'm like, even if he scores really high on primary at the end of the game, I don't think he's got a way to catch me. And then he goes, "Oh, I'm in a secret mission," and I'm like, "Oh no, that's going to get me," because I don't have the resources to keep exchanging to then go, cool, we're here. I've got an unassailable lead, because that's what Firestorm could do, is get that unassailable lead, and then your opponent couldn't do anything. But yeah, I couldn't do that against this, and it was just the hold 3 objectives one. And I did realise in the morning that if I'd advanced my infiltrators on turn 5 to run into the centre of the board, that I could have potentially denied his deep strike to stop him doing the hold 3. But as I say, I was slightly inebriated, so don't drink fun juice, kids, because it will make your Warhammer worse. So I lost that one narrowly. I think it was like a 13-7. So yeah, it was.
Yes, I'm looking at it now. It says 13-7.
Yeah,
13-7. So
78-66.
I guess that makes me want to ask the question: is so you think that secret missions are actually going to have a big impact on this season? Because gambits were just, who gives a, no one cares, right? Get them out of here. Don't even ask.
Right.
But yeah, so like the movement shenanigan, like Grey Knights, Necron, Hypercrypt, as you're saying, other stuff like that, sounds like they got a real possibility to just plan around and design secret missions.
100%, yeah. It's a yes and no. You have to go second, and in Pariah Nexus, I think going second has just become far more important. I think you go up a good 10% when you go second now. Wow. So yeah, it's a real impact, and I think that would be my only, that and pivot would be my only criticisms of Pariah Nexus in general. But yeah, it was, and a friend of mine went up against the same player and was secret missioned as well in that in the last round. It didn't mean that he won, but it turned it from being like a 20-0 to like I think it was like a 13-7 or something like that for him as well. But he did win it still. Yeah. But yeah, it was a huge amount of point swing. And obviously in WTC scoring that matters. So yeah, I think you've got to bear in mind with secret missions, yes, 100% they're very good. Necron Hypercrypt plays them very, very well, because they can 3-inch deep strike on your home objective with their Warlord, or they can just string out across multiple objectives. Those Doomsday arcs, they're so long, and with pivot, like just free pivoting, they can hold 2 objectives with 5 OC on each. So they're quite scary, and it's quite easy to get 10 OC on things. Yeah. Yeah, it's nasty. So, and I had one opponent. He said, "Well, one of my thoughts was I was going to use my Storm Guardians to just string across objectives, because he was playing a very shooty Eldar list. So if you want to lean into secret missions, take something that's going to really brutalize your opponent, and then score late. And I think scoring late is going to be a lot more relevant in Prior Nexus, and secret missions definitely enable that. If you are thinking secret missions, have something that can play multiple different secret missions, though, because making your opponent guess and question themselves can basically take units out of the fight. So, like, I had to hide some intercessors until I was like, no, he's definitely going for the whole 3 objectives. Just in case, and I had to keep my infiltrators back so I didn't get 3-inch deep struck on my home objective. But yeah, secret missions are the real deal. There's a lot of potential there.
That's the thing. Okay, Bailey, let's write that down. We'll have to figure out a way to. We'll have to
write this
plan
down.
At some point in the future. Dedicate a whole segment to how to play secret missions. So,
yeah, I mean, I think as Dark Angels, we kind of want to think about stopping secret missions rather than playing them. I think we are looking at, and we can come on to this in a bit, but I think looking at how Dark Angels should play now, we want to be stopping our opponent from being in those positions by being aggressive, being in their face, and in positions they don't want to be. They don't want us in. The name of the game has completely changed for Dark Angels, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I would say we are a denier of secret missions rather than a doer of secret missions. There's probably ways, and I think if you wanted to take the Raven Guard detachment, great, yeah, sure, 100%, you can probably do it. But if you're taking the Raven Guard detachment, you should probably be taking Ultramarines. So you've got Uriel Ventress,
and Marnius Calgar and all that action.
So, I mean, Ventress going, you've got Deep Strike now. It's so good.
Up be down.
Turns out that's quite good. Who'd have thought, right?
Turns out it's real good. Yeah. Okay. We can revisit that a bit, but okay. So look, man, you're hammered out of your mind. You've just taken your first loss on round 3. That's still fantastic. So this is a whole weekend event, or did you guys try and push through for? Okay, so the next day, how'd that go?
So next day, I'm hungover, shockingly. So I was playing my teammate Aaron, who introduced me to Black Crow, which is obviously my team. He's my podcast co-host, and he's the one that helped me kind of make that step up from being a casual competitive player to being a competitive player. So I owe him a massive debt of gratitude, but also it was kind of a bit of feels bad that we've travelled 3 hours to get to this tournament. Which, to be fair, for you guys in America, that's probably not a huge amount, but for us, it's quite far. And we're like, well, we got to do it. He's playing Custodes list that I'd sat with him and been like, okay, here are the weak points, here are the strong points. And going into the game, I was like, he just has no way to deal with triple Redemptor unless I roll ones.
Custodes do not like things that are 3 damage. Yeah.
No, Custodes don't like things that are 3 damage. They don't like things that are -1 damage. They're gonna hate Deathwing Knights. But that was a real rough one from his side of the table. And I was able to kind of get into positions. We're doing Scorched Earth on Search and Destroy, so at least kind of the deployment was in his favour. But I was able to kind of scout and jump back Intercessor Jail him for turn 1. So he didn't really get to do anything until turn 2. And he had his go turn, the Custodes War, I guess, where you jump everything out of rapid ingress, you go for it with the advance and charge, all that kind of stuff. So they went for me on turn 2. I rolled 4 ones, including one of those being a reroll on the axes on one of my Redemptors, so it just lost half its wounds to the 3 damage axes when they were 2-up saves. So yeah, that was a brutal one. So I lost that Redemptor, but I had 2 Redemptors left. I think what was the stuff I lost? Like a Redemptor some incidental units. I think a Predator, that kind of thing. So it was nothing that I was like, okay, this is disastrous. And then my Fights First brick was able to kind of go in. It whiffed when it actually went in the first time. But then I was able to do some handy movements with the Redemptors so that they survived long enough to be able to take out enough of the Custodies that this critical mass was gone, and the sting was kind of out the tail at that point. The only massive downside, and at this point it was just kind of funny, so my Redemptors were down to 3 and 2 wounds respectively for the last 2 that were still alive, and there was a massive brawl going on in the centre with like Wardens, the Flyboys at Custodes, my Fights First brick, Azrael, and I fired the Plasma. Hazardous. Roll a 1 on Hazardous. Roll a 6 on Explosion. Roll 3 damage on my Redemptor. Roll 3 damage on just about every unit around that centre. And it was just like, we just looked at each other and just went, I think that's done about 500 points worth of damage from one Hazardous roll. Like, oh, man, brilliant. Awesome. What could possibly get better than that? Oh, it was hilarious. And I was able to get to the point where I was like, cool, okay, now my Fights First brick is going to dominate that centre. It's gonna burn an objective, and I think I won that 16-4 in the end. But that was very much a focus on going, I'm not gonna let you score. Like on turn 1, I heroically intervened with a squad so that I out OC'd him on an objective to stop him getting secure no man's land, which is usually a turn 1 like perfect, but I was able to do that. So yeah, it was. I mean, it was a bit of a feels bad going against a teammate, as I say. But yeah, Custodes just have a bit of a rough matchup into that triple Redemptor kind of style. And they've got a lot better, but I think they still struggle to deal with massed armor. I think that's going to be less of a problem now. But for Dark Angels, I think they're still going to be a good matchup because we're going to be pushing them onto their invulnerable save. We've got Fight on Death, and we've got a 2-up, 4-up with -1 damage in our Deathwing Knights now. So I think they're gonna have a bit of trouble with us. But yeah, that was round 4. So I was 3-1 going into round 5. And I come up against the guy who was the 30th highest ranked player in the UK last year. So very good player, playing as Eldari, which he always plays. So yeah, very, very, very good player playing very shooty Eldari. So it was triple Fire Prism, double Harlequin boat with the 4 damaged cannon. Yeah, it was... With pivot rule, Fire Prisms are stupid. And it was on Inspired Leadership, not Sweeping Engagement, the other one, Crucible. Was it Crucible? It was one of the sort of decent shooting deployments, and taken hold. So I was able to get into a position where I was like, okay, I can't win. If we try and slog it out, I just can't get close to him. The damage output is ridiculous from this army. And turn 1, he just picked up like 500 points in my army. He killed because I went first, which is terrible in taking hold. Yeah, and I lost.
Yeah, because you have to expose your stuff to start getting primary, and then he can unmask his units, and he gets first crack at your stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, well, to be honest, it was more the fact that it means that he's always going to score 15 on primary at the end. Because I'm not going to table him. We're not playing the kind of armies that are going to like fully table each other. So he's going to score 15 on primary at the end of the game. And there's no way I can stop that. So I had to kind of build that points deficit where he couldn't get me. Which was going to be tough when I lose 500 points turn 1. I lost unit scouts, Redemptor, Predator, unit jump back intercessors. So and that was very unfortunate because they weren't really exposed. It was just the fact that they can link fire, and there had to be a turn where I had to run. and I had to try and get into these positions where I would then be able to hide most of my units and go for it. And that was the turn that I did it. And unfortunately, yeah, he picks up 500 points turn 1. So I'm like, okay, we'll reevaluate what we're doing here. I did have quite a good turn 2, I think it was, where, well, it didn't start off so nicely because he overwatched my full wound speeder and killed it with a fire prism. Yeah, that was not a good feeling. I just looked at him and I was like, not happy.
Those fate dice, man.
He only had 1/6 as well. Yeah, just the re-rolls, the fate dice. So it was 1 natural 6 and then 1/6. And I had bring it down that turn, so I was like, oh, my speeder going down before it gets to shoot is rough. Because that speeder can do so much work against Eldari armor. But I was able to take out one of the fire prisms with a Redemptor. And then the Inner Circle companions killed 2 Eldar tanks, one of them being because they're toughness 6, so they killed a Viper and they killed one of the Harlequin boats. So I got 6 on Bring It Down, which was great. But then I was like, that unit's now going to get chewed to pieces, and it did, because he had the 9 heavy bolter Windrider unit, which is horrible, especially when they ignore cover. So that was real difficult to be able to deal with. And eventually we got to the point where I was like, this feels like I've lost. This is feeling terrible. And I had Defend Stronghold, and he had Swooping Hawks. He was able to up the Swooping Hawks, down them, and I was like, cool, okay, well, there has been that change, which means Fire and Fade doesn't work if you don't shoot anymore, right? And he was like, no, that didn't affect Eldar. And I was like, great, fantastic, no problem
Eldar,
with that at all.
Yeah, you have rules. Eldar don't have rules. You have rules.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, oh, goodness sake. That was a bit of a frustrating moment. But then, so he managed to nick my home object. A lovely guy, by the way, absolutely lovely opponent. Horrible list, absolutely disgusting. Brilliant list as well. And he's going to be at Sheffield, so I'm praying that I don't come up against him as much fun as we have. But yeah, and it comes to the last turn, and I go, okay, I'm 19 points ahead. Flip your secondaries. If you get good secondaries, you've won. If you don't get good secondaries, I've won. Because he was going to get 15 on primary, and he gets Cleanse and Sabotage, and it's like, well, that's 10 points right there. So there was just a couple of really key moments that just didn't go my way, and it was very much. And I said to him afterwards, it wouldn't have felt right if I'd won that game, because it felt like I'd just been taking an absolute pasting. And trust me, if you'd seen me, I was there steely faced, like going, don't salt out, don't salt out, don't salt out. And so if I'd won, I would have felt very bad. But it was a very tough game, very well fought, very fair, and sort of like, if there was ever a rules moment, we were like really chill with each other just to make sure that we could, like, if the intent was there, always go with the intent. Like there was a moment in, I think, round going into my round 2, and I was like, oh crap, I've got 15 on primary, and he was like, oh, if I'd realised that, I would have fire and faded with these warp spiders to stop you doing that. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Of course you would have. Like, there's no choice. There's no choice in that. Obviously, you're going to do that. You can't let your opponent do that. So I was like, yeah, cool, do it, because I know that's what anyone would do. And then there was later when he'd moved a unit of Storm Guardians, and it was like, oh, I should have done this like quite a bit later. And I was like, I'm not sure if they had the movement to do that. And it was like, cool, well, they're not going to do it then. So it was very, very well natured. Really, like, this is how you should be playing the game. Even when it was like, Yeah. Even when it's like brutal, we're both going for 4-1. And like, I'm sure most people have experienced when you are at 4-1. There's always that little going for the 4-1 or going for the 5-0. There's always that little bit of edge to a game where you both really want to win it. You don't 3-2. It obviously is a great score, but it's not a 4-1. And same obviously 5-0. You're on for shadow round. So it was a tough loss to take. I don't think there was anything I could have done differently because I think I had to play a bit more aggressively. There was arguably maybe a few things that I could have done differently with my deployment. But it was a tough game after a long weekend of very tough games. I think it was probably one of the toughest in terms of opposition that I've ever had on my run. So I was pretty pleased with my score in the end. Finished it at 3-2. And then our driver made the shadow round and had to play Josh Roberts. So that was quite entertaining. We had to sit there for 3 hours watching the England game. Absolutely terrible football game. Sorry, I'm back onto football. Terrible game.
Don't
but
worry.
My friend got to go into Josh Roberts and he made him sweat for a good 5 minutes. But then it's Josh Roberts, so he just went, cool, I'm going to do my thing. Yeah. For those that don't know who Josh Roberts is, he is the guy that writes all the rules and the ex-Team England captain. He is I would say probably best player in the world. Yeah, he's insanely good. Yeah. Amazing guy, such a nice bloke, such a good laugh, plays the right way. I've played him before. He beat me 100-15, and I was still having a great time the whole game. And it's good. Like when someone hands you your backside on a plate, like that's the and you're still having a good laugh. Like that's the sign of someone that's a credit to the community, and Josh is very much a credit to the community.
Awesome.
I agree with that.
So hey man, 3-2 is better than I think I've ever done at a 5-round tournament. And so I mean, it sounds like even though you're kind of playing down a little bit with the action features of Firestorm being nerfed, it still sounds like you're pretty competitive.
Yeah, I would say that the list was strong, but when you get to that point where you are aiming for those 4-1s and hopefully eventually 5-0s, the margins become very, very slim, and the subtle and inadvertent nerfs that Firestorm has taken just means that it's not quite there. It's still a lot of fun to play, and I would say to people, if you are looking to build into competitive, absolutely have a crack with it. See if it's your playstyle. It will be a good laugh. Particularly in the US, where you can still take Land Raider Redeemers quite efficiently. We can't take them so well over in the UK because the way that the maps
terrain layouts or
exactly, yeah, they're all 5-inch gaps and everything like that. So for 285 points, that cool. I'll spend 15 more and have the Lion instead. But that's it's good, but it's just compared to what you get. There was a number of times when I was like, I wish I was playing Gladius. I wish I had, a turn of advance and charge. I wish I had fights on death, all that kind of stuff. So I think Gladius is very much now the way that we should be playing. I think if you can ever say that, it seems to be the best way to do it. So yeah, I would say Firestorm's all right, but yeah, it's lost a lot of the reasons that I enjoyed playing it. So for me, it's dead. But you can still do fine with it. But if you are chasing, your 4-1s, your 5-0s, it's probably not where you want to be.
Okay, so a couple things to ask here. So first, how important were the battle line units? Your one unit of intercessors, because how many of the missions did you pull that had one of those mission rules that interacted with battle line in a special way?
One.
One.
And it was the one on stream, and it was raised banners, and they raised a banner on my home objective, and then they somehow it was really funny because I didn't realize it until the end of the turn, and I was like, oh, my intercessors are on the center objective, banners. And I was like, cool, this is an extra point. I don't really care about battle line. I don't think it's that important. I might be completely wrong on that. I think this is very much a Dark Angel centric view. I think other lists that have less detriment by taking battle line, great. But our battle line choices of TAC Marines, Intercessors, Assault Intercessors, and Heavy Intercessors, there are points tax for the most part. I take Intercessors because sticky objectives are handy for that that late game push if I need it. So that will remain for sure. But it's not worth the points, and when it's so important to spend your points right. Even more so now in Pariah Nexus. I don't think battle line is as important for us. Other lists, you will see it a lot more relevantly, and it's something to bear in mind. If you've got like a Necron heavy meta, definitely stock up on them because they will just secret mission you with battle line.
That's true. Also, orcs, like the orc boys, I think their main damage dealers are battle line. Right.
Yeah. The Green Tide. The Green Tide dies surprisingly quickly. And you just go, cool. Okay. I'm going to take Cull the Horde. Bye. And they just fall over. Like they've got a T-shirt save, right? Like they're on their 6-up in Von 90% of the time, and you just go through them like a knife through butter. For the most part, the Green Tide. I don't think we're going to see that much because it gives up a secondary so efficiently, and because they do just fall over too quickly. It's a bit like it's saying, right, I'm going to take 60 Deathcore with the 5-up Feel No Pain and the 4-up Invulnerable save. It's like, yes, great, those two abilities are awesome. You're still toughness 3.
Yeah. Or the old Necron, the Tyrannid Cockroach Euphoria, just here's 100 gaunts. Yeah, I think you're right. That's a good point. Cull the Horde is basically going to solve a lot of that problem. But okay, so next question. I don't think I understand how you play jump pack intercessors. Do you keep them in reserve and drop them in, or do they start on the board and then move? What's the tactics with them?
So they are mission play. They are 12-inch moving Marines, which we just need. I think you're going to see in basically every list for 80 points. They are always going to get their points back because they're either going to do secondaries for you. They can score behind enemy lines quite easily, or they do mortal wounds on the charge. And that ability to punch up, like just those impact hits, it's like you can grenades and then do the impact hits, and you've got 11 chances to roll a 4-up, and each time it's a mortal wound. Like that is so good. And then 2 plasma pistols and a power fist. They are surprisingly painful to go against, and weight of attacks with those chainsaws as well. If you're going against chaff units, they'll just go through them like anything. But yeah, they are mostly for mission play, and I think most Marine lists are going to be playing at least 1, but I think 2 is going to be the magic number.
Okay. I've been experimenting a lot with Inner Circle Task Force. What's your opinion on that detachment?
It's tough to say because I've not played it myself. My gut feeling is that it's got a lot better, but it's definitely probably a 3-2-able detachment now, because it plays all of the right units now, and that would be good. However, I'm always going to take advance and charge over that and the tactical flexibility of advance and charge and then fall back and charge is always going to be the winner for me. So yeah, it's good. Bit of a nombo with the anti-vehicle, anti-monster with the Deathwing Knights, with the +1 to wound, because less good that. But wounding Space Marines on 2s, pretty nice. So there's play. There's definitely play, but I just worry that not having that tactical flexibility to turn Deathwing Knights, they're always moving 5 inches, and they are very screenable, even with their teleport homers. I want them to have advance and charge at some point in the game. So yeah, fine detachment. Not what I'm going to be taking. I know that Alan's going to be taking it because he loves playing true Dark Angels and endlessly teases me about the fact that I don't take true Dark Angels. But yeah, I'd say it's fine. It's probably not going to win any tournaments.
Okay, fair enough. Pardon me. So yeah, I think I've been solving the mobility Deathwing Knight problem with transports. What, as you said, y'all's terrain layout over there in the UK doesn't really entertain that. So I'm having a Godhammer pattern Land Raider and a librarian in there with them, so they get sustained hits with those swords, and it's just a bucket of attacks that triggers up pretty good. And +1 to wound with strength 6 weapons, that's a lot. So, and then yeah, and I was thinking about using Vanguard vets to perform kind of that same function you're talking about with Assault Intercessors. So I can drop them in 3 inches, or it's cost CP. I don't know, but
yeah. I mean the 25 point difference to taking Vanguard vets to jump pack intercessors, I'm not sure it's worth it. But you can take 5 plasma pistols, which is quite nice. And yeah, you can 3-inch deep strike them, which is also quite nice. But I would say just take jump pack intercessors and just get them around the board quickly, because they do move pretty quickly.
Okay. All right. So after this tournament, obviously 3-2 you're showing, and you've mentioned several times you're moving towards Gladius. So what is that going to look like?
Beautiful. Absolute art is the is the word, because I get to play the lion and I'm so excited. I'm just like, right, Big Daddy is here. You might have noticed that all of my list names make some kind of reference to the lion being a DILF, because don't Google that. But yeah, they are literally every single one. It is the lion is DILF. The lion's a DILF. The lion's a DILF and he's here to help. I play Dark Angels because the lion is a DILF. All that kind of thing. And he is finally here. So I have submitted my list under the name of DILF Brigade. So we're ready to go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Because it turns out rapid ingressing the lion and being like, hey guys, deal with this. Oh yeah, I mean, Tactical Torch just read it out on his stream the first time I went 4-1. Yeah. Yeah, I think we have a bit of a theme of going for stupid names. I think my friend was playing Hypercrypt, and I made an offhand comment of like, after turn 3 you can go up their butt. So he submitted his list of Toby says after turn 3 I can go up your butt, and then played that at the ICT, and I was like, brilliant, thanks. That was Aaron actually as well that did that.
Thanks for making everybody read this out loud. That's awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's great fun, because you're like, if I do well with this list, there is a streamer out there that is going to have to read the fact that I play Dark Angels because the lion's a DILF, and that's funny to me. And watching it happen on stream from Tactical Tortoise was very entertaining, when he was like reading the list and getting all excited about it, and then saw the name of it and was like, what? So
nope,
yeah,
not
always
saying that.
always call your list something stupid.
So we've made something of a thing about reading out names like that for lists. So yeah, it's great. So
Yeah.
all right,
Rid those people.
I'm just
you're
one. I'm
getting
super
nuts,
excited
just
to hear. Yeah, yeah. I'm super excited to hear that the lion's going to be a thing. So what else is going into this list?
I'll actually just super quickly read the list. It is so the lion, Azrael, shockingly, double librarian, one with the honor of eminent, intercessor squad, just sticky objectives, double impulsor. So you can probably guess that there's going to be some inner circle companions coming up. Two jump pack assault intercessors, then two Deathwing knights, 12 inner circle companions in two squads, two scouts, and then Sternguard to babysit as, because sometimes you roll sixes and they all have Deathwing guns. So it's a little bit of a nod to the fact that Thousand Sons might be really good, because 2 up, 4 up, and a 4 up feel no pain to to psychic attacks. Yeah, and one of my really good friends, Paul Bridge, is so he's the best Thousand Sons player in the UK, possibly the world. He's very much up there, and he always beats me because Thousand Sons was statistically my worst matchup with my last list. So now if I get him at Sheffield, I'm going to be very, very excited, because I'm going to bully him.
There you go.
But it was. Yeah. Deathwing Knights are really good. They're like Redemptors, but there's 20 wounds of them instead of 12. And they can deep strike, which is great. The Lion fights first, which matters a heck of a lot now that Heroic Intervention is 1 CP. You just it's so good. And like, I absolutely love him. He was turning tanks into just scrap metal when I played Guard recently. It's like, oh, you're toughness 11. Yeah, cool. 2 up save. Saving on 6s and I'm winning you on 3s. Oh, I'll make it 2s because I've got Honor the Chapter. And then even if the Inner Circle companions get punched, they get hitting something with combat, because I was like, oh, I don't really want to lose the Judicar. But I have, because Honor the Chapter gives me that flexibility to go, okay, if you charge me, instead of interrupting, I'm just going to fight on death. And it's, if you just go, cool, right, this unit's going to fight on death, so you can charge me, but your unit will die. Like there is very few units that can stand up to either 24 2 damage attacks at strength 6 AP2, or 30 damage 1 sustain 2 attacks. So they hit like a brick when they get in. They've got a 4 up invuln now, which is their major weakness is their defensive
profile. And they're
-1
to hit,
yeah. So now they've got some good defense behind them. They're looking real good. And just that turn of advance and charge, just to get you guys in after it, because they're going 9 inches out the impulsor, then, the advance roll, then charging. So their threat range is really good. And then, as I say, with Deathwing Knights as well, advance and charge, really nice. But then that turn of fall back and then charge, just so that you can reset if you need to, because you do bounce off some things like Bullgrin. They're a bit of a pain in the backside to chew through if there's 6 of them. So yeah, there's a lot of play to that list. But rapid ingressing the Lion is very, very funny. It's in fact one of my favorite activities, because he's on the same size base as Abaddon. So he's like, hi, I'm now in your back line. I've got a 3 up invulnerable save. What's your plan here, fella?
And I can hide behind buildings. And I can and Kool-Aid Man through the wall. You're going to have to make some choices. You're going to have to make some really tough choices,
Yeah, and
I don't know.
He kills anything that he comes into contact with. There's so like Angron maybe stands up to him. I think that's about it. And because he fights first, you can't even charge him.
And that +1 to wound. Well, if you charge, +1 to wound is fantastic. Because he'll wound basically anything on 2s. So so I played with the Lion on Wednesday night and put him behind a building or behind a wall so he can't get engaged through it. And my opponent had a unit of Exalted 8-bound with a Juggerlord or a Lord Invocatus, and so like he gives them mounted, right, so they can't go through the wall. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna. His line just comes out, and then the inner circle companions join him, and they're all dead. They're all gone now.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. Like,
we're going to see it a lot more. I mean, he is 300 points still, and that's a major investment for something that is T9. Melters are going to be his worst enemies, so it's a bit of a calculated risk that hopefully I can clear out Sisters efficiently with the other units in my list. Sisters are the one that I'm kind of scared of, because you have to start everything on the board, because otherwise they will just spread across the board and stop you deep striking anywhere. You can't always start on the board against Sisters if they've got that, if they're the jump pack one. So yeah, if you start failing 3-ups, things can get a little bit scary for 300 points. But as I said earlier, if you don't roll less than a 3,
you're fine. It's all good.
Yeah. It's all good.
It doesn't die.
Just fine. Just fine.
So you know,
it's...
you just go, okay, what can actually interact with a 3-up invulnerable save, fights first unit? Not a lot, unless they're, and like, especially if you lone up him.
Yeah, big stuff with like Imperial Knights, stuff like that. Get within your lone op range and just make you roll that save. But or stuff like that. War dogs and armigers with Melta, I would be concerned about. But that's, once again, you just have to be careful setting up your lines of sight. But
yeah, I mean, war dogs, I do think could be they could be an issue. Because also he's probably going to have to use his Watcher ability rather than his reroll ones ability, because you don't want him tank shocking you and things like that. But
just the reroll ones ability? You mean like the +1 hits?
No, he's got a reroll ones aura as his lion ability. Unless I've been playing that horrendously wrong.
I think you may have.
Oh, it's add one to hit roll. I have been playing that wrong.
+1 to hit, yeah.
So,
it's +1 to hit.
Yeah. So yeah, the Martial Exemplar one is pretty handy, but we'll probably just be using no hiding from the Watchers all the time. So in that case, instead of rerolling ones, Oath of Moment.
Yeah.
So
if it was real ones to hit, that'd be amazing. But
oh yeah. That would be really tasty. But unfortunately, that's not that. But he does get the Watcher ability with the change to mortal wounds. That's pretty nice now. But yeah, melters are the scary thing. That's the one thing I'm worried about. Is it going to come up? Find out when I get Chaos Knights round 1. Knowing my luck.
I do think that one of the Lion's mortal wound aura is super. Like, I had one of our other guests we've had on, a guy named Gerard, runs a blog called 40K Angels Keep. He pointed out in a blog post the other day that Black Knights overcharging their talons. Well, it's 3 mortal wounds if they fail, and they've got 3 wounds each, 4 if they're the command squad. And the Lion's basically going to make it so they just don't die when they overcharge. They can safely overcharge entirely. Now, I like Black Knights, but the pivot and the fact that they're on those big stupid pill bases, they're just so hard to maneuver. I don't see as much utility for them as I really wish they had, but I just thought that was a cool interaction that I wanted to point out. And the Lion's mortal wound aura makes it possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen people discussing Hellblasters with Azrael's one. I am still, and it's my kind of, it's the hill I die on. I don't like Azrael with Hellblasters. I think it's a massive mistake to put 10 Hellblasters with Az. Yeah, it's like, yes,
Go
they
on,
do
please.
now have...
Tell me. Yeah.
Right. Okay,
I've been doing this wrong. Yeah.
They have a 4-up invulnerable save. Great. They are still T4 bodies, and I will just put enough shots in them so that they fall over. And being strength 8, I'd funnily enough at Oxford when I got my first super major 4-1. I checked someone's list that was Dark Angels, and I'd gone, right, well, he's playing the kind of the standard Gladius Dark Angels. We're going to put the Lieutenant and an Azrael with 10 Hellblasters, and that's going to be a death brick. And I was like, I don't rate that. I don't think that's good. And then I came up against him in round 4, and I was like, oh God, okay, I've got to put my money where my mouth is. And actually proved that. And I said to my mates on the night, I was like, I need to make sure that I actually get this one. And then I think I won it 96-44, and it was exactly that. It was just like, cool, you've got a nasty unit, but it dies.
You only have
very,
one
very
nasty
quickly.
unit. Yeah, no, yeah.
Even then, he had the aggressors with the Apothecary Biologist with Fire Discipline as well. So like that was great, and it killed the Redemptor, but those kinds of 10 Hellblasters, they're just not good.
You know what kills 6 aggressors with the Biologist and Gladius?
Redemptors.
Like literally wipes them all out. 10 assault intercessors, lancing with Azrael. That's what kills 6 aggressors and a Biologist.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaking sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would do it. It also turns out that plasma from Redemptors is quite nice into them as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Here's all my damage 3. Bye.
I do agree that when you expose that 10-man unit, then they're going to kill something and then probably get picked up in return unless you're very careful about it. So I was trying to experiment with 2 bricks of Hellblasters, because one with Azrael and the Lieutenant is just too much stuff in one spot. So I was doing Azrael with one, and then the Lieutenant with Fire Discipline with the other one. So you have 2 things that have to get played around, but
I'd point out, Heath, that this is once again.
Yeah.
Once again, in the 3 years we've been doing this, we'll bring a guest on and we'll say, oh, here's this very, everybody does this. This is a good idea. And then the person that we have on, because they win a lot and they do really well, goes, no, that's ridiculous. Don't do that. And we're like, what? We've done it again.
And
we're
I'm
go
down
to the
for
chalkboard
it.
and put,
it's great.
the Lions won. Another attack for the Lions. No points for the people that get fed to the Lions.
Yep. I have to count on the people who are out there doing the work. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the Hellblaster thing is it's good mid-table, but if you need to go to that next level, like what you're saying, it's just too many points in one spot that can get played around.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, and the way you're doing it there, and it's like, all right, so if you do want to do that, I would change the Lieutenant for a Librarian. And give him Fire Discipline just so that they've got a 4-up invulnerable save, because I think that gives them a bit more of a fighting chance. But I've been saying this since Gladius was our only option, that this was not, because I tried it right at the start and it just got picked up every single game, and it was like, cool, okay, this is irrelevant. And it was the thing that did it for me was the fact that no one else was going, great, I can play a Librarian in 10 of them and give it Fire Discipline. And if no one's doing that, and we're kind of really leaning into Azrael with that, it's like, yes, he does give you an extra CP, but he is far more expensive, and he's doing less shots than a Fire Discipline Librarian. And no one is doing that. Probably the sign that it's not where you want to be at. But also, wants to be in combat. I've got him with Sternguard this time, and that is to clean out chaff and to do dev wounds, because I want to spike the number of shots. I want to spike the number of 6s that I roll on my dev wounds, and then each of those Sternguard has 4 attacks in combat. I know they're AP 0 and they're only strength 4, but there's 4 of them. There's five guys. One's got 4 attacks with a Power Fist. They've all got sustained hits, and
You can in a pinch you can honor the chapter with them, and that turn. And that,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, sometimes you roll enough dice and things fall over. Like if they're going into a unit of guard, those guard are going to die. They're going to unit of sisters, chances are they'll also die. Like there as needs to be in combat, in my opinion. But everyone does it, and it's not something that I say publicly that often because I know it's going to make people be like, "What are you talking about? Everyone does it. It's amazing." But like every time I see it on Facebook, I'm just like, "Oh no, please no."
Well,
don't do it.
Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Azrael Hellblasters, wrong play. Let's see what we got. So you doing 10 Stern Guard with Azrael or 5?
Just 5. They are just babysitting him. As is not a frontline unit. As is a late game play piece that you want to pop out. You want to pick something small up, but you want to play defensively because that CP, that extra CP, is going to be what I rely on so that I always can go. If you charge me, I can fight on death. If you charge me, I can interrupt. If you charge me, I can heroically intervene. Like having those options and those threats is how I'm going to get into my opponent's head and force them to make decisions. And eventually, chances are they'll make the wrong decision. And at those, when things like tournament fatigue come into the gameplay, round 5, you're not going to make the right decision every single time. You are 100% going to cock something up at some point. So forcing your opponent to make difficult decisions and just getting in their head a little bit. Don't actually get in their head. Don't be that guy. But with your play, you can just get in the head a little bit, make them make tough decisions. That's going to pay dividends eventually.
Oh yeah, completely agree. So yeah, using Azrael as your basically reserve unit, right? He's just sitting there behind a wall with some dudes chilling, hanging out. And, okay, if you move up, this is my counter punch, and he's generating me CP every turn. And when you put him with 230 points worth of Hellblasters, then you feel the need to be more aggressive with it.
Yeah, so, I mean he's 335 points for that brick if you don't take the lieutenant, and that's more than the Lion.
Yeah,
like that's more than a Land Raider Redeemer. It's, I mean, you think what else you could have for 335? You could take a unit of Deathwing Knights and a unit of Inner Circle Companions and have 10 points left over. Like, what would you prefer to do when you've just got 4 wound, like 2 wound, 4 up Invar Marines?
I think this is one of those things where, like, the difference in skill between me and you is, because me, I like that safety blanket of having a high shooting output unit to fix movement mistakes. But when you're at that next level and you've got the precision down of moving where you need to be and having your plan locked in for how you proceed, you don't need the shooting necessarily to clean up mistakes. So,
I mean, maybe. Equally, if you saw me play, you'd probably go not skill, because I'm a moron when I play most of the time. I pride myself on messing around during my games at all times, and like genuinely, if you watch that stream, I was an idiot the entire time. My intent at tournaments is I'll make 5 wins. Yeah. Like sometimes, it's the same. It's the thing, right? Where it's like if you have enough monkeys hitting random keys, eventually they write Shakespeare. So I think that's very much my way of playing. But I think in terms of making movement errors and then having the shooting to handle it, I think there's better options for you there. We can go, okay, I've got 335 points to play with. Let's start by putting in, say, a Redemptor, because I can make that error with the Redemptor. I can still have him in cover. He's got a 2-up save. Armor of Contempt means that he's basically got a 4-up invuln unless I'm against anything. Thousand Suns, I guess, is the only. Oh, no, not even Thousand Suns anymore, actually. So he's basically always got a 4-up. Most of the time, he's saving on 2s and 3s. So there's your first 210. Then you've still got 125 left to play with. I'm trying to think what you could get, which is nice for 125. I mean, for 5 points.
You're most of the way to a Predator Destructor there.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can take your Predator. There's plenty, or you can take like some chaff units. There's definitely play. So yeah, I've always said that I'm not sure on the Hellblasters, and I think definitely there's more survivable options that you can take. Where you don't have to pour, because if you pour points into one unit, it's the Knights problem, right? They are technically quite survivable. T13, tons of wounds. They've got an invuln. I know it's not a very good one, but they can rotate iron shields, all that kind of thing. But you just don't see them because it doesn't matter how many wounds you've got. If it's one big blob, it dies. It's why I'm somewhat worried about my inner circle, because there's a lot of points in that unit.
Your offensive stratagems are more efficient into it. Oath of Moment is more efficient into it. It's just the way the rules of the game work. You get more efficacy out of stuff going into one big concentrated pile of points.
Yeah, and it's also so the way that I handled it, they were in a repulsor for my Oxford game, so I just blocked the repulsor with scouts and just went, it's not leaving your deployment zone for a turn or two. He couldn't kill the scouts for 2 turns, and then eventually I blew up the repulsor, so the Hellblasters obviously have to jump out. I was like, cool, I'm going to charge you, and I'm going to make sure that the way that you've got out of that repulsor, because you're in such a confined space, when I charge, Azrael won't be able to get into combat, so he's not going to be able to just slice through me. It's just going to be Hellblasters trying to punch me. That's going to buy me a turn. Yeah. Sure, my scouts die in your turn in your combat, but at that point now you've got 10 Hellblasters, Azrael, and a lieutenant standing in the open somewhere where we know that I've got a lot of guns pointing at you. And at that point, the unit just was picked up, and it was game over.
Okay. All right. Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about. So, Bailey, you got anything else?
No, that's as I pointed out, I'm just glad that every time we get a new guest on, they always bring something that we weren't expecting, some sort of counter meta nugget that's just mind-openingly, game-changing, and really appreciate you bringing that on, Toby, because I think part of it, too, is just I was talking to some buddies the other day about Hellblasters because they want to go back and play 8th edition because they're so fed up with 10th. They're like, oh, let's go back and play 8th. And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's go back and play 8th when I can Weapons of the Dark Age 10 Hellblasters and it actually means something. Yeah, guys, that's a really good idea. You're not going to want to play that game with me. And they're like, I'm like, no, you guys have forgotten how good 3 damage Hellblasters that can actually destroy everything because nothing except for like Land Raiders or T8. Yeah, you don't want to play that game. And for people like me, I feel like this is also, it's kind of nice to having people on, because I was going to ask Toby, how long have you been playing, like edition wise?
So I started at the very end of 8th and started playing properly in 9th, and then competitively I'm just about to come up to my year anniversary.
Okay, yeah, because I've played since 4th, and Heath's played since like somewhere in 5th, right?
Beginning of 3rd. Yeah,
I started
in like 2002. Yeah, so beginning of, or like middle of third edition. So
yeah, and so just bringing that perspective to the game sometimes, like where people do things like, well, this is how I've always done it. Well, that's how you play 4th edition Dark Angels. Cool, great. We have Primaris now. You don't have to play that way anymore. But then playing people that are like, well, I've only played anymore. Right, or like I have some buddies that play that are like, oh, this is a good idea. I'm like, well, yeah, because you played this and this. You didn't play this before where this thing was good, or people had a lot of these because they were good, and now they're good again, and everyone's got them, and you can't find them because they're out of stock in the game store and the web store. And it's like, well, it's because these people bought it all forever ago and have just sat on it. Like the whole thing with these inner circle companions, right? That was our hobby challenge this month because I got a box back in March, and I wasn't super stoked on it at the time, but I got them. And secret surprise for whether or not they got done for the hobby challenge, I got to go do some priming now and painting after the podcast today. So that's a little preview as to whether or not the hobby challenge is complete.
I'm not there yet either. So
okay. But no, it's just thank you for coming on and bringing that in, because that's definitely going to send me back to the drawing board, which is what I think everybody's super excited about with Brian Nexus. The drawing board is clean. We get to start all over and try all these different ideas and concepts. And I look forward to hearing how you do at your next event. And I'm really looking forward to seeing whether or not Heath and I can keep a straight face the next time we have to read one of your list names.
Yeah, I mean, so as I say, it's Dilf Brigade this time. I'm quite excited for this one. I think if I've got a couple of people that talk to me quite regularly about lists as well. But if you guys or if anyone listening wants to reach out and chat about lists, I'm very active on the Dark Angels competitive group, which is the one that Alan Percival runs. And I can also be found at Black Crow Gaming, either on Instagram, or you can listen to me ramble and usually swear quite a lot on our podcast as well. So like there's plenty of ways to get in contact with me if you want to chat. And I'm always happy to talk about Dark Angels and talk about Warhammer in general. So if you want a hand with lists, please do reach out. I don't often bite. I just sometimes say, "Hey, look, it's Brokeback Mountain," and they wonder why I don't have a girlfriend.
I just went over and subscribed to y'all's YouTube channel during the show, so there you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me on, fellas. Absolute pleasure. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Again, I love talking about Dark Angels and talking about people that also love Dark Angels always makes it so much better. So really appreciate what you guys are doing in terms of making that space for Dark Angels fans.
Awesome. Also, I think this has been great.
I appreciate
it. Bailey, you want to take us out of here?
No? All right. I'll take it home.
No, man, I'm good.
So thank you all for listening to this special interview episode of the Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast. Our next episode will come out later this month, which will be the full episode. We'll have event results. We'll see how Toby did. We'll see the funny list names and all of that. And again, as I aforementioned, the
full adventures of the Dilf Brigade. Yeah.
Yes. So please subscribe, like, and comment below so you don't miss out on that if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to your preferred podcasting service. Last but not least, we'd like to thank Purple Planet for the use of their music. Until next time, I'm Bailey from Dank Wargaming.
This is Heath with Team Table Hawaii.
And I'm Toby from Black Crow Gaming.
Stay loyal, Angels.